goals initially during a specific project, because often we're aligning with an existing campaign or group who are already doing a lot of work. A lot of it's measured in the immediate moment. Obviously you can't measure the much larger effect on like a movement or these more like amorphous things, but in the immediate, often these campaigns, what they are looking for is amplification. They want more people to know about it who don't, and from a bigger way. So something like even forcing the media or forcing a big media market to cover an issue that they never would have touched before, that's like a measurable goal.
Yeah.
And so some of these things get attention in a way that a lot of traditional tactics just won't do the same.
Yeah. Yeah, like that one little bit of information, that one little idea that might shift things, you know? Like it's never our decision, it's usually something that comes from outside where some people smarter than us, more acquainted with the issue say, like, yeah, if only we could get everybody to think about it this way, our campaign to achieve X would be so much better.
Yeah, some issues are being covered by the media, but it's being covered by the media from the point of view of powerful media conglomerates who are affected by government entities, not the way that we want them to be talking about this issue.
Yeah.
So the challenge, and when it works, the measurable impact, is getting earned free media attention for the campaign or for the action that is not only attention, but it's attention on the exact messaging that we want as opposed to whoever the opponents are.
Yeah, and there are plenty of individual journalists who are super willing to play along and to, you know, publicize our message. They're not, even though they're employed by whoever, they're not individually beholden to whoever. So that if we present them with a fun package that says, for example, you know, today's economic policies are, you know, dressed up apartheid policies or something. If we found a fun way to say that, they would love it. You know, they'll publish that, even though their bosses may not agree.
But if we had just told them that, they would have said, I think I'm going to pass on that story.
Yeah, that's a little radical.
But if we make the story first irresistible,
yeah,
and is irresistibly fun, then suddenly we have our specific message covered for free.
Okay, we're running out of time, so I know I had a question here and a question here, and the last question's there. Okay, so yes.
I'm like getting a lot of headaches in terms of, because I like what you're all about, and I'm thinking how can we use it, and then at the same time I'm thinking our limitations, you know, in terms of how do we use it, the need for international or global solidarity when it comes to taking on the system, because the system must go, right? So we've got this fertile ground globally, and we've got youth. Last we had such militant youth in the 80s, so now we've got this huge component of youth that is radical in its own thinking and wanting the system to go. But now locally with us, what we have is that certain activists would be targeted. So if we should be doing what you are doing, be immediately arrested and thrown, locked up until 3 tomorrow morning, and they'll let you go, they take you out of the equation type of thing. So we should be wary about that. I like the laws, but with the good news newspaper at the end of the day, how do we tackle and undo the system? How do we build people's power and take back our power as a people, and throw out the old system, but then bring in the new system type of things. So I'm having all of these things. How do we use it, and the little resources that we have, because we have a lot of naysayers, and we have a lot of what we had back in the 80s. It's suppression and depression of. So okay, use force, jail them. We don't want to listen. Some of these people, the enforcers, are some of our old comrades that's buying into it. Some of our people don't want to hear the stuff also. They know it's the truth, but they don't want to hear. So the issues of violence, of deepened poverty, inequality, and joblessness are real and true issues that we can work with.
Yes.
But how do we use whatever we have and creatively bring that message and build on the current activities that we have?
Well, that question is sort of the answer. You know, working where you are on the issue as it presents to you, wherever you are, because it is the same global issue. We need global solidarity, but the issue, the problem manifests in very different ways in very different in different places. So really working where you are on what it looks like here.
And I would also add, just to clarify the one part of your question too, our tactics, definitely one common thing too, is actually minimal resources. It's not vastly funded or backed by bigger resources. These tactics are actually a solution to not having a lot of power and resources, but it's more like a guerrilla kind of tactic than it is one that's well-resourced.
Right, right. And it's just what we happen to enjoy and be good at and have done for a long time. It's not like, you know, there's so many ways to use tricks or use fun or use effects that the media will like and people will like, and will get out there and communicate messages, humor with whatever. Besides this is just what we've ended up doing.
And it may not always be the case, although I kind of want to think that it is, that like humor and some of these like more fun approaches can be a way to disarm the more violent enemy, right? So like being playful a little bit creates some empathy, and it's a little harder to do their typical tactics.
Yeah, beating up clowns just never works.
So perhaps part of the solution is thinking, what is a way to make them laugh? What is a way to make the police even laugh?
Or make them
whoever.
Look ridiculous if they beat you up. Like, what are you doing? Like, there's actually a clown army that formed to accompany protests during, I don't know, it was in the 2000s, and they would just clown with the police, and they would mime and do all the, you know, they'd pretend to be police, and it was kind of to defuse the whole thing, maybe make the police laugh, but really make it like so they couldn't beat them up. I don't know, it worked a little bit. But I mean, the main how-to, like how do you do it? Besides look at where you are and how it manifests where you are is team up with people. That's really the one key. For us, it's been essential. Like when we met, you know, we were each doing things, but not the same. When we teamed up, it's like we've been able to do much more that way. And then the more people that we've teamed up with, the more we can do. And like most of these things are the product of dozens of collaborations. It's not two people with an idea. It looks like that maybe because of the filmmaking, but it's not.
Okay. Your question, yes.
The question that I have is around the work that you are doing seems to be reactionary. You act on something that is already okay. I'm thinking about the work that can be able to prevent before it happens. For instance, we understand like now here in our country, the president is calling for investors to come. But we don't know those investors, the outcome of things that they will be doing, the risk that are associated with the nature of the businesses that they will be running. As to how can we have a creative work to be able to make the government to account to people before they bring businesses, so that we know the risk, so that those companies that will have such risks like ExxonMobil, the Opal issue, and other things that happens with all chemical products. As to how creative can we have such work to be able to mobilize people to say, you fight a problem before it comes.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we're also working on a project here that kind of does that in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But part of it is to create the context where the idea that we want everyone to remember can be mobilized when it's needed. So part of that is creating the story ahead of time even within people's like kind of consciousness.
Yeah. Finding like if the goal is to alert people to what the bad things that can happen, or an investor, or like maybe the goal is really to alert people that the government is not paying attention, that the government does not have people's best interests at heart, you know, that the government is not to be trusted to choose investors to come, because it's the people who can really force the government not to do what it's doing. It's only the people, nobody else can.
like maybe in the
So-
case you were talking about, we don't know the companies who are going to come and invest and develop this whole new place, but we know that we can work on on creating the situation where the government people will associate and apply pressure to the government if they do this business with any company that comes in this way. So creating the context that's not tied to a specific corporation or a specific company.
Yeah. So using our techniques, I mean, you could, imitate an investor and go sting a government person or, expose them for being clueless. I don't know. But I'm sure there's many ways to do it. It's just.
Okay, last question, and then we must close up.
It was a bit covered, but I just want to ask about the coverage of whereby you publish a newspaper, then people, they get excited, they laugh about it. So I want to know, does the media companies take that into seriousness whereby they can copy what you do so they can also give a news coverage that it's more positive?
I'm not that optimistic.
Yeah. I mean, the news coverage has to be true. Ours doesn't have to
Or
be
at least
true.
profitable, and a lot of our news probably is less profitable.
Yeah. No, I mean, we don't, that was like a piece of fiction set in the future. So, the news, I don't know, journalists do what they do, and some of them do a fantastic job. Like right now in the US, I have to say one of the bright spots in what is happening is that journalists are doing an amazing job. There's a lot of journalists making excellent work, doing wonderful investigations, and they're being as optimistic as you can be given the circumstances, I'm sure, some of them. But, they do what they do, and, we do what we do, which is give them something to write about. We don't want them to change their work except to do it better.
And in the
But it's
case
a very clever campaign. I like it.
yeah, because I think in the case of that project too, the thing that it also does, even though it's a bit hard to measure, is create space in more people's minds that things can be different. Here's some examples of how they might be different. It might take a lot of organizing, a lot of work to get